say, well, you know, if one is better than another, it's more by luck than judgment. Because although you are, the maker is employing some judgment as he's doing it. It's not really in batch making that kind of real difference. When you're making individual pots, it's totally different. It's totally different. You really are assessing and refining and exercising a discretion at the end of it that is really highly critical. Now, some of the production makers might pull me up on that. What do you think, Norma?
No, I think you're right, but I think at some point, I mean, you know, you've made these forms, you know, a number of times, so you're not really you're not at the stage, you know, let's say that we're at. We're not having to we're not thinking about all the little decisions at every moment, and because you have an understanding of, you know, what the glazes are going to do and what the possibilities for finishing are. I think a lot of students or people that are, you know, working on, you know, that are at different levels need to be, you know, at some point they have to be a little more critical of their forms when they're making them. You know, it's not to accept everything that they happen to touch.
Go to that student 5 years later when he's established his workshop, when he's feeding the fairs with their orders, and you find his attitude of super criticism that he may have had in the art school or just after has given way to a fluency and a flow which is generous and is the characteristic of nearly all past traditional functional peasant work from any country. But along comes the super art critic who's never touched a lump of clay, and he differentiates, and he writes things in art magazines, but gives a lot of verbal stuff to a couple Now look, I don't want to take all your time. I know I'm going on talking like this, but I just wanted to give you just a start on these, you know, how I go about it, and I will go on making a few things, but if you feel that you now at this point would like to break off and get moving on what you're doing, or I don't know what time it is now.
Actually, it's 5 till, so another
What
half
time is it?
hour wouldn't give us time to get started anyway.
What do you make the time?
It's 5 till 11.
5 to 11.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to, you know, get on, you know, get to wedging some clay and get the feel of the wheel, and you can sort of break up and do that. I'm going to go down and start, you know, getting some things started.
Well, now, I've tried the porcelain clay. It's good. You know, it's nice to throw with. It's not, when you knead it up, it may crack a little bit, because it's fairly hard, but when it comes to throwing it, it's fine.
Huh? Yeah, it's harder because it doesn't.
Yeah, and then we know so many people from the practice.
Do you prefer to cut the clay or to paint on it?
Yes, it is really exciting.
Do you prefer to cut the clay, carve into it on those, or do you prefer to paint on it?
I do both, and I will treat these differently. Some will be carved and some will be painted. Painting I do after the firing, after the glaze is on it. And then I paint on top of that.
Do you primarily work in high fire? Primarily work in high fire? Is it all high fire?
All high fire. Oh yeah, all porcelain.
Went to hit for wheels, grill wheels.
Did you write this?
Not from Chicago, yeah.
How was that?
Especially Kansas, I've heard it before. I was trying to see. So is this the same kind kind of clay body that you throw when you're back in England? Did they make it up for you to be the same way you have it over there?
This is very like the body I use at home, the feel of it. The recipe is a little different. John gave me a recipe that he thinks is the one that was used for making this up.
David, do you work with anything similar to the Harry Davis white stoneware? This is the stuff that Mick gave us from that last summer.
That's a whole body. Harry Davis white stoneware, yes, that's a very good body.
Are you familiar with this?
Hey, what is it not? Looks very nice. That's not one I know.
But this is more similar to
I'll
what
send
you
them all a
use.
copy. I don't know if they
That's
mind if
not
I get it, as
porcelain.
long as I get it.
That's a stone one.
With Shirley's, this stuff and Leach books and this
Yeah, this is all
pretty
mixed
darn
up.
good proportion
I
to
was just
see if she
curious.
gets into it.
It's not,
Trust
that's
me,
not
it's
porcelain.
Okay,
He's
but
got a
are you
killing.
familiar
He used to have
with
a
this
killing
white
back
stoneware?
there.
Yeah, it's probably Elmer that works on
I
this,
was
isn't
a whole
it?
kill on
Elmer
every 3 or
would know.
4 weeks. Going nuts.
Really?
Yes, but you mean, what do you mean?
My daughter found out about the seminar. And
He was familiar with this, because I want to try this recipe, but
That's a very good recipe for throwing,
okay,
but you haven't got the clay here.
right.
You haven't got the high fat 71.
He said to use the high silica ball instead of this.
See how what's up? High silica ball clay. Well,
I was just curious.
well, technically that might be the answer, but when
Okay.
it comes to plasticity, which isn't measured, you know, you may find the high silica ball clay that you get
Right.
is very different in behavior
Okay.
to the high class 71.
Well, that's good
because,
to know.
you see, there's a physical difference, not a chemical difference.
Okay.
I got some books that have him on the cover, so I know who you're talking about anyway.
Yeah, he's a neat guy.
I'm making a bowl now to
Clay.
test the clay,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
whether it's going to sit down
right.
on me, because, you know, it's going to
Right.
be flared out like this. So far, so good. Very careful about the speed.
Again, it's a tapered. Yeah.
If I go too fast now, that will sit down. The centrifugal force of the speed will make it sit down.
Handouts, do something to read, watch TV. Sure. There you go. One week. Well, I'd start out with the amount of clay you normally do, and then say after all half a dozen balls, then add a half bowl. Because the only way you're gonna get big.
David, do you do any handles in your porcelain? You do? You gonna teach us how to do that? Oh, good. Oh, gosh. That's where I always go wrong.
This bottom's
You're taking it off.
No problem, because it's stick to the base.
I'm afraid to ask him if he uses a bat. I'm sure he doesn't.
Right, well,
Right.
maybe you should go
Yes.
ahead and have a go.
Okay.
Get ready.
Posterity now.
I know, it's too much. Dad, you know, I want you to get a view of the mountains too. Oh, this is terrible.
Anybody got one of these new students? That, forgive me saying so, some of you are really very much at the beginning stages of flooring. And you shouldn't really be starting on porcelain. Porcelain is something that's much harder to learn, the elemental skill, than on stoneware. And I think, for instance, Donna and Diane, you have found this. Don't regard it as a total waste of time. You've learned something, and there it is, probably you've learned to throw and center much better at stoneware, which you're now doing. But if there's anybody else feeling that they're not getting anywhere, now's the time to correct it. And I think really, there are several people who are really at the beginning stages that ought to be working on stoneware. You can observe the porcelain, observe the things I'm doing, take it all in and say one day that's the way I want to do it. And perhaps even next week there may be an opportunity, but to start now and try to do rather difficult and thin-edged porcelain things before you really know how to throw and center and all that kind of thing with confidence is really cart before the horse. So get the horse in front of the cart. Now, so let's correct that for your sakes and everybody's sake. And I don't know if there's anything that's cropped up that, you know, in the course of the day yesterday that presents any problem or difficulty.
I think we're,
Let's share the wheels.
Share the wheels. Now we're going to have all the power wheels on Wednesday because they've got some in with solder. So we're going to have 7 or 8 more power wheels starting Wednesday, running through the end of the workshop. So Dorothy Hafner that's coming in won't use wheels at all. So we'll be able to move the kick wheels out and bring power wheels for everybody in on Wednesday. And the other thing is one of the reasons if you haven't been able to figure out why porcelain is so much different than stoneware is that one, obviously it's white, but it's the particle size. It's very fine. And the stoneware is a blend of varying particle sizes, and those varying particle sizes allow the clay sorter for you to pull it up with less skill, let's say, and it tends to not be quite as frustrating. And so I think that, like David said, those of you that are having a difficult time, even if later on you want to move back to porcelain and try it again, let's try to really, let's get a couple of really nice things out today, and it would be expedient, I think, with the stoneware. If you're having trouble, I'm not saying, people there are people that are moving right on, moving ahead, doing quite well with it, by all means continue. But if you're struggling, you're having some problems, the forms are not rising easily, cylinders aren't coming up, try, switch out for a bag of the stoneware, and I'm sure you'll see a marked improvement in the quality and quantity of things.
The last thing we want is for people to go away from thinking, the rest of them, they didn't learn anything and everything was too difficult for them. I mean, you know, there'll be negative results. Everyone's got to go away with a positive result.
Yeah, and I don't think it's, I think it's all within reach if we just sort of match skill levels with material. Does anybody have any problems that we don't know about?
Yeah, that's right.
Anybody want to see something that they haven't seen so far?
I do have a question. Would it be possible for you to write out the recipe for your stoneware and
Sure.
David's porcelain and also all the glaze recipes so that the people at Anderson Ranch could Xerox them off for everybody in the workshop and we wouldn't all have to be trying to
Well,
get them in little bits and pieces?
well, I don't know whether Elmer agrees with this, but I thought we'd have a special session,
Oh, okay.
you know, where we get together like this with, you know,
Great,
and
great,
we'll hand out all the recipes.
great,
Great.
great, wonderful.
I've got a lot of glazes. For instance, there are about 6 or 7 glazes that Chris is making up for us, that we've agreed about, for you to use, you see, when you get to the biscuit stage. So that's what we're going to do
Great.
as far as that. I think it's best left to a session, and then you see if there's any technical point you want to discuss, we can discuss it together. If we put it all up now, you know, you'll all be coming back at different
Right.
intervals and asking the same question twice. So we cover it all by doing it in group.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay. Very good, that's it. Any questions?
Will we be having more demonstrations?
Oh, sure, yeah, it's just that if you know, if there's some specific things you need to see or want to see or, you know, that's,
I was wondering if we could see some handles out of porcelain today.
Yes, I'll concentrate on that. I'm going to make a number of more things, and I'll be carrying through the different stages. We want, I think, in a sense, to keep an eye on what I may be doing. I don't want to keep calling everybody off the work they're doing, because that's going to cause so much interruption to your work, you know, it's going to hold it up. So just keep, if you think I'm doing something a bit interesting to you, I may give a shout, but just keep an eye on it, you see. And the same, I think, with you, Elmer. But we'll go ahead with different things, yes, certainly. I'm going to be making a 2-piece bigger tall pot, and I'm going to make some bowls. I'll make something like a teapot, stop complications of lid and spout and so forth. And I'm going to be engraving right away in a minute now these things that I finished turning off yesterday. So just to give you some idea of what I might be doing.
then I'm going to be doing some pictures, and I did some sort of low plate forms that are going to be footed bowls, like the one that's in the exhibition. I'm going to throw separate feet and attach the two, and then throw the foot on the bottom of the plate. So that would be sort of starting, and then handling and all that along the way.
When you start a new technique, like doing a lid or doing your foot, could you just sort of say, make an announcement that you're doing it for whoever?
Sure. Okay.
And the people who are waiting for those fluting tools, they've just gone up to be corrected, but there are about 12 of them for anybody to use.
Very good. Let's go to work.
Go to it. This is a small fluting tool, same as the others, but small.
Still double.
Good morning.
Is it a similar thickness with the domed lid and the flat?
This is a little bit thicker, if anything. Nothing much. No.
Hey,
Yeah, I'm
David.
gonna ask too, the tree has some sort of significance. What is the symbolic significance and what is it called?
The tree?
The tree that you're doing. I've
Willow.
seen it in
It's a
Chinese
willow.
art.
It's a willow, and it's derivative in the sense that in the 16th century in Japan, plates were made, not engraved, painted, but
Right,
the
the
same
willow
type of
plate.
design. And the story goes that it was done with a mother and a child, her child, both doing the decoration, so that a branch like that was done by the mother. And the child was so adept that she had a brush with blue pigment in and would do the leaves. And if you know my father's book, Potter's Portfolio, you'll find an illustration of it, of this plate, and a little explanation about it. So that's way back in the 15th, 16th century. And I've simply picked up that type of thing and translated it into terms of engraving instead of painting. Really. And, you know, altered it a bit one way and the other, but basically the same willow form is the dominant feature.
Well, it's a graceful shape and it fits the forms well. It's a beautiful
Well, yes,
motif.
it fits the form nicely, you see.
Yes.
And then again, the celadon glaze, so that you get the same kind of play of glaze in here as you will do with the fluting. There's no difference between that and that in terms of technique. Okay. Oh, I know. Did you notice what the camera was? Just regular coffee can. Obviously, they got them too high, then but you see, no matter they do, it's its own job. And, you know, what the company did. Yeah, but they don't. It's interesting, isn't it? It's working way in and out.
Well, I might be, I don't know. But I was here a couple years ago when they did that.
Please, here too many of us.
Right, here's a slightly different.
Anybody, please don't.
David, how can you tell they're centered when you're tapping like that? I was talking to
Dabbing it. Well, you will find that that isn't absolutely in the center. Maybe in the center there, it may not be there, and it will be there. You know, in drawing they do move. I spread the base just a little bit.
How were you able to get the sizes exactly the same?
Calipers.
Very clear.
That must be big enough, obviously, for your arm, hand. Usually I have the sponge on the inside at this stage and this fellow on the outside. This is perhaps one of the most important things, the way the bottom and the top are welded together. Also, I change the shape, and I swell it out a bit. And if that join isn't good, it's going to open up as I push it out in the middle.
Then what do you do if it isn't quite right?
Now, if I'm dissatisfied with that join, I take a belt. You know what I mean? A belt of clay.
Oh, wrap around it?
And, yes, and heal or seal that crack, which I'll try to do. Sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's not.
What's that it happens now? Down.
So, I'll make a belt. Lost all my room. Is getting dry. I'm going to go Africa. This shape